Young people are being elected to office, but still not enough. We would like to see a proper demographic representation of young people. So if young people in a certain country are 50% of the population, we would like to see 50% of young people in office. Also, regarding the young people, it's very important to educate these people on issues that do matter.
You are, interestingly, both a medical doctor and an advocate. Can you tell me how those two things transact and where health hits poverty and sustainability and food insecurity, how that all comes together?
Well, you can't separate health from hunger. When someone is malnourished, their immune system drops. They get sick more often, and slower recovery, and the cycle continues. When someone is sick, they work less, they earn less, and they eat less. Especially in countries that depend on informal economies or day-to-day paychecks. When clinics catch this early through growth monitoring, antenatal care, and nutritional screening, that is helps us to um, cure the help the patients earlier, and therefore the cycle breaks. Strong health systems also help to break the cycle. Um, and yeah, so there's an intertwining relationship between health and hunger that you cannot separate. One cannot go without the other.
And so it must be very helpful to you to be able to rely on those two prongs of your profession, of your education, of your politics, and your belief systems, and all of that to be able to do the kind of work that you're doing. That if you can't get at it from sort of an emotional or experiential level, you can come at it with, you know, facts and science. Neat things like that.
And I actually started recently, about like 8-9 months ago, doing my second master's in public health and global health, especially. But there's a nutritional aspect of the master's that is very, very interesting, and yeah, hopefully I can tie that to like everything else I'm doing.
I love that. It's just making a bigger bat.
100%. Now, when we're talking about nutrition, and you mentioned nutrition, malnutrition a couple of times now, um, there is a shift in conversation, and this is what I personally find in the last little while. It's we are talking now more and more about not empty calories, but actually nutritional food, and especially in sub-Saharan Africa and Asia, where for the longest time we had seen it was all about calories. Make sure they have calories in them, but that conversation is changing. Do you see the same in your line of work as well?
Well, yes, the big barriers, um, between achieving the global goals, especially like SDG 2, with health and policy change and innovation, is including the fragmented government policies, the unequal access to land and finance, the climate shocks, and the weak nutrition data. I suffer a lot to get the data for my thesis, because my thesis is mainly on refugees in sub-Saharan Africa, and how they, how well nutritioned or malnutritioned are they. So the data is very, very hard to get. I often have to travel to some countries to get the data myself, and do a random testing and scanning to some communities to be able to get these. Also, innovation helps when it is tied to a policy. So, for example, linking the cash transfers to nutrition outcomes, that that helps big time. Also, using the climate smart farming support for smallholders, that also works. Creating shared goals between health, agriculture, and education, that also works.
You mentioned the barriers, which was one of the questions we wanted to talk about. What kind of pushback are you getting? Like, are people eager and um, excited to help you get your data, to help you facilitate these programs, or do you run into a lot of static? Do you run into a lot of problems?
It's a very good question because sometimes, well, the official response I get is, of course, and we're happy to help you. And
Yeah, that sounds great. We'd love you to come and point out all the ways that we're failing our population. Come on over. It's great.
exactly. But also the approach that, some governments are taking, and again, I'm talking about sub-Saharan Africa because that's where my research is based. It's very, the response is very weak, and also it's not engaging the community. So I'll give you an example. I was speaking to FAO and WFP in one of the countries, and they were telling me that the solution for a stronger agricultural unite front is by changing ownership of land. So like each farmer has like a very, very tiny piece of land, and that's not enough to like grow uh, or like fulfill certain agricultural needs of the country. So they need to like unionize it kind of, and pay out the farmers out of that union share. Um, that sounds theoretically like a very good idea. But when you speak to the people, the farmers on the ground, they tell you absolutely no way. No one is allowed to even come close to ownership of our land. And this is like a cultural value, it's a religious value, it's a lot of things to these people. So ownership of the land is changing it is not an option. And that's what these two institutions are pushing for in that country. Um, so yeah, I'm discovering a lot through my research, and hopefully I'll be able to publish very soon. And
Are you naming names? Are you dropping a hammer, or is it all been redacted? Like, can you certain country that rhymes with blank is
I try as hard as I can to be as diplomatically and politically correct as possible.
I think it's in your best interest to do that. I just wanted my follow-up question to that is the reason why people are not and governments are not interested in doing anything about changing poverty and food insecurity because they're making the assumption that these countries are just always going to be food insecure.
Or maybe they don't understand the actual problem. They know that there is a food problem in that country, but do you know what the food problem is? Maybe if you understand it better, you can help through bilateral aid, through multilateral aid, through development projects, through um, even personnel assistance. You can help, but do you even understand what the problem is?
And that's at their own government level, right? Is that what you're talking about? Are you talking about the larger? Because, like, inside of a certain country, any particular one of these countries, does their own government even understand what the problem is?
Um,
This is where the like, here's going to get politic all of a sudden, right? Here's your phone case. Ready, go.
I'll give you an example of our own country, Canada. It's very, very diverse, right? It's very diverse. But if the government is just centralized and based in Ottawa and not getting out of their offices, would they understand a problem that is happening in a First Nations community somewhere 4 hours outside Winnipeg? They would not. It's the same exact problem that is happening in these countries. Governments are very centralized. They are not getting out of their offices. They're not investing in research or how can I say this politically correct? Investigative tools to actually see the reality on the ground. And when they do see the reality on the ground, or when they think that they do see the reality on the ground, they don't engage the community in drafting or shaping the solution. They just come up with their own solution, thinking that it's a one size fits all. And that's a solution that we implemented in X village, so it should work in Y village.
And so we talk a lot about cultural relativity on this
Yeah.
podcast and how things have to be relative to their own communities and their own cultures, and there has to be food sovereignty and stuff like that. Is there a certain is there some kind of a thing that a certain percentage of people dying from starvation is collateral damage to running a country in sub-Saharan Africa, and we just need to kind of embrace that idea and move forward? Like,
Absolutely not. Absolutely. If one person dies of starvation, that's a huge failure for the entire system.
Of course it is, but the mentality of the government is sort of like we're doing the best we can, and as long as we're sort of looking after the majority, like
Yeah, but I think if I'm understanding correctly, Sameh, what you're trying to say, and this we see in Canada quite a lot,
yeah,
is one, the Ottawa of people in the Ottawa is not stepping out of the offices, but also when they are, because MPs are from different communities,
yeah,
even when they are, they do not understand the solution. In Canada, I'm going to talk about Canada for a few seconds here. Like, whenever we are talking of food insecurity, we have seen governments, the first action is write a check to the food banks.
Mhm.
And that is not food security.
no, that's
And I
aid
think that
instead
is a
of
problem.
development. Yeah,
But it's also not that it's easy to do for politics and for politicians. That is a more glamorous thing to do is show up as
well,
a food bank.
it's a soundbite.
That's it.
Yeah.
Like I gave $100 million to food banks, or I'm going to show up at
Which
food
is like
bank.
perpetuating a problem.
That's
right?
it.
I mean, that's
That's
what Sum
exactly
said
the
on our
problem.
first podcast. He's like, I'm trying to put myself out of a job. Like, I don't actually want to be doing this stuff. We shouldn't be doing it as a society. My whole thing is like, coming from a social justice background, I'm interested in kind of exposing the institutional apathy that's happening in these types of situations. And that's where my frustration lies, is that we have all of the resources. I mean, I've heard time and time again, we have enough food on this planet to feed everybody. And yet, again and again and again and again, we're only serving certain percentages of the population at the expense of literally everybody else on the planet. And I'm now getting more aggressive with my questioning as these 52, 54, however many podcasts are that we're doing, because I really want somebody to come right out and say, like, oh yeah, they know what's going on. They're just not doing what needs to be done, because it's only when we sort of call people out on the carpet like that and hold them accountable for their behavior that anybody is going to become aware, first of all, and that maybe something's going to change, and maybe nothing will change. Maybe I'm just, shaking my fist in the air, but I think
It
this
will
stuff,
change. It will change.
I think this stuff is worthy of saying out loud. Like, yes, I have the resources. I have the data. I understand the problem. I've been boots on the ground in these places. I know what's going on, and they are just not willfully, ignorantly connecting the dots because it's not sexy, because it's
100%.
not what's going to get them a soundbite, because it's not going to like do anything for their portfolio. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm starting to get pissed off, Sameh, is what I'm saying about it. And I'm not even doing your job. Like, they'd fire me from your job because they feel like that crazy lady needs to leave. She needs to stop.
I agree.
No.
I'm just saying.
You're in a reason.
They sometimes say that to me as well. That crazy guy needs to go.
Because I just be like, everybody needs to stop and then self-identify what it is that you're actually doing to solve this problem. And if you're not doing anything, you need to go.
No, I agree. But coming back to children and youth for a few seconds here, we are seeing now very slowly the tides are slightly changing with more youth getting elected in office.
Yeah.
In Canada, this weekend, I met our youngest member of parliament from Brampton, and she's brilliant. But how can we, and for anybody who's listening to this podcast, what is your advice that we can give not only to the youth, but also for the regular folks, in how can we leverage the youth experience, youth knowledge in decision making, because they do have a seat already?
Well, and I think the first thing is we could unleash a bunch of angry 8-year-olds out into the government and see how they deal with that, first of all, because they're terrifying.
Well, let me start by just saying, Suman, that yes, a lot more young people are being elected to office, but still not enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
We would like to see a proper demographic representation of young people. So if young people in a certain country are 50% of the population, so we would like to see 50% of young people in office. If in some countries around the world there are 70 or 80%, yet they're not even 5% in office. So why is that? And you can play around with the term youth all you want. It could be 30, it could be 35, it could be 25, depending on what you want and depending on how that fits your national narrative. But again, that's not enough. Also, regarding the young people, unleashing the 8-year-olds, education is still it's very important to educate these people on issues that do matter. I think it was last year. I was in one of the countries having a meeting in a ministry, and after I finished the meeting and I stopped by a shop nearby to have a juice, and right outside the juice shop, I found some kids playing, and I was wearing an SDG pin. They were telling me, "Oh, that's so cool. You're wearing an SDG pin." I'm like, "Wait, you know what an SDG pin is? Do you know what the SDGs are?" They're like, "Yes, we do." And it was a global South country, not a global North country. So what are they? They're like, "Yes, there's 17 goals adopted in 2015." And they kept telling me, I'm like, "What's your favorite goal?" They're like, "Oh, my favorite goal is SDG 3 because I want to be a doctor." "What's yours?" "It's 17 because..."
Come on now. I love that.
Wow.
That is, that's a small example from a public school in one of the uh, countries that are not as spoiled as we are in Canada. So
Okay, so let's give them a shout out though. What country was this?
it was Kenya.
Way to go, Kenya. High five.
Yes.
Actually, we have a guest coming into our podcast in a couple of weeks from Kenya.
Okay, fantastic.
A minister from there. So we'll
Yeah,
have a
that's good.
conversation. That's
Well
great.
done.
Nope, amazing.
No, which is, you're correct. And I will tell you, here in Toronto, I have had questions this year from principals of high school who's asked me what is SDG.
Really?
And you see the contrast. It is really unfortunate that most of, especially countries like Canada, US, most of the jurisdictions do not focus on SDG.
Well, it's because, again, here comes the social justice. Here comes the thing that I've said in 52 episodes, because we're trying to function inside of systems that were not created to support the vast majority of people that live inside of those systems.
Yeah.
They're created to benefit a small percentage of the population that is no way indicative of the population at large. And that's why you can come into a country that has all kinds of opportunities and they don't care about stuff like this. And you can go to a place like Kenya and you can find 3 kids playing in the dirt and they'll be able to list off their favorite SDG like it's a rock group.
amazing.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
That's such a great story, Sameh. I absolutely love it. I think that's fantastic. But I do want to give a shout out to our province of New Brunswick in Canada, who is officially has a curriculum on SDG in their school curriculum.
Yep.
So, which is very few. I think there might be 1 or 2 other provinces as well, but I know New Brunswick. That's fantastic. That is a great start.
Yeah.
And I've been working and trying to see if Ontario can follow suit, but it's a different story there.
Well, yeah. And the thing is, like, maybe they're not talking about SDGs in the north in Canada because they don't even have clean drinking water. So what are the chances of them getting any of the other sustainable development goals when they can't even get that? So I get why they're not talking about it, but we should certainly be talking about it.
100%. I totally agree. And our organization here in Toronto is doing some little work in a very small way in spreading the awareness, not only in just schools. We show up at malls, set up stations, and talk to people about SDGs.
Yeah.
Just random. Because the awareness is certainly important. And now as we come closer to 2030, what is post SDG?
And I get
what does that mean?
My confusion around this globally is why it seems like low-hanging fruit to have this conversation. There's nothing required to set up a booth. Like, why isn't somebody...
Okay, I really love this, and I really want to hear and see, what do you think? Why is this a problem?
Well, I mainly think this is a main problem because it's not involved in education. And I'll give you an example. In Saudi Arabia, they are talking about sustainable development from, I think, grade 2 or 3. Of course, they're tackling it from a national perspective, but they're still linking it to the global process. And the Vision 2030 that the country has, it's honestly one of the most unique national visions I've ever seen. It is strong, and not just that, they're linking every developmental project they can, or they have, to their national 2030 strategy. And in every official speech, you hear 2030. And in education, they get a lot of questions on 2030 to a point where they hate 2030, but they're very, very knowledgeable about it. So you can ask any child from Saudi Arabia or in the Saudi educational system, what is 2030? What is sustainable development? What is the national Saudi vision? Can you tell me the main elements? And they can list them for you in just seconds. So education, that's my answer to the question.
I agree, and I am not in Saudi. I'm not in Saudi education system, but whatever little time I spend at the UN with some folks from Saudi, I can probably list some of them because they drilled it in my mind, which is fantastic.
This seems like such an easy win. I don't understand. Again, this is political will. I came up with this idea that we need to do a drinking game on this podcast about every time somebody says political will, we take a drink because it's all we seem to be talking about. That one of the major barriers to making any progress in any kind of area is political will. And it seems like this is low-hanging fruit.
It is, and in our previous administration in Canada, I was trying to advocate a lot for having the budget, our annual budget for the government, under the umbrellas of the SPG. And it took one step forward, three steps back, one step forward, three steps back. At the end of the day, we didn't get it. But you don't have to put enough money. Just to do that will encourage people to learn more about the SDGs.
Yeah. Or even, I don't know, talk about it on the news.
Yeah.
Leave flyers at the bus shelters while people are waiting for their bus, like that kind of stuff. Get involved with public television and have somebody come and do, I don't know. I don't
Campaign.
something.
Suman, I was just recently having a conversation with a Canadian official about this specific topic and asking them, why is SDGs not included in education curriculums? The answer was the overlap of jurisdiction.
Okay. I never heard of a more political answer in my life. Like,
Oh, I have heard it
talk
for
about
10 years.
saying absolutely nothing.
I have heard this exact answer for 10 years.
Sorry, I
I'll
didn't
tell you
mean to
that.
interrupt you.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Explain what they meant by absolutely ridiculous.
They said that when we try to approach this department, the department says, no, it's ours, we'll take care of it, and so on and so forth. Also, we were just talking earlier about, I was telling you that I'm following up with elections in parliamentary elections in a certain country, and I'm overseeing what's happening, and it's the trend is very similar to what happens in other countries. Is that they bring members of parliament they bring people from the capital, and they put them in other constituencies to run, so that I don't know, they have some quotas they have to fill or whatever, of different ethnicities, different religions, different backgrounds. And they put them all together, or they put them, separately in different constituencies, and they run for parliament. Yet they're probably all from the same city, probably even most of them are from the same family. So when you want to talk to your member of parliament, they're not there because they never belonged there. They never even visited the country other than for elections. So how can you contact your member of parliament in these countries if they don't even visit?
So true.
Cool.
But I'll tell you this.
That seems to be like
That's a no-brainer.
I mean, I don't even know. That seems like such a major problem.
But I
How do you
tell you
get
this.
past
What
that?
Dr. Sameh talked about, the jurisdiction, from 2006 to 2015 in Canada, I heard that exact same thing every time we talked about school food program.
Yeah.
Exact same narrative. It's cross-jurisdictional. That's a province issue, not a federal issue.
And I
Go to
think
your
it's a
province.
byproduct of politics. I mean, I lived in India for 2 years and I worked on a longitudinal healthcare study, and we were working with the government. And every time I went in to talk to somebody, it was a different person.
Yeah.
Like I'd show up and I'd be like, hello. And it was some, hello, you've never seen me before, which means I have to start all over again and in some cases it was somebody's wife's cousin's
Yeah.
barber who somehow got a position, right? And it's all about who you know. Like, this is the bigger problem. These are the things that I
Or
get
while
so
I'm
super by.
while I'm going to jail, my wife will
Right.
hold my seat.
Which
for
also
a few years.
happened.
Yeah.
Like legitimately,
Literally
that's a
happened.
real thing. Yes, I know who you're talking about. And and they put a minister of education in who was functionally illiterate. That was my other favorite story
Exactly.
that I told.
But Dr. Sameh, tell me, we understand SDGs and we understand education being a huge barrier. What message would you have to, let's say, governments of developed countries like Canada, like US? How do you think they can achieve, and what is their motivation of achieving this?
Well, first of all, your government needs to talk to each other. They need to, sit down together and
For the people at the back, say that again. Our government needs to what now?
in your weekly or monthly or annual cabinet meetings, if you ever have them, you need to sit down with each other, talk to each other, and try to solve these political indifferences between, among yourselves. Not every time that I come or someone comes and talks to you, you say it's a jurisdictional issue, and sorry, we're not supposed to be working on that. Talk to each other, end the bureaucracy, please. So that we're called global north for a reason. Like we're supposed to be actually solving problems not just for our own, but for other nations as well. So
I wonder, and I don't know if this is a rhetorical question or not, but is it easier to affect change in a country that isn't so full of itself? You know what I'm saying? Like, if if you're bootstrapping in a country that's really struggling and they're willing to try anything to see if they can affect some kind of change, isn't it a little easier than trying to convince a fat cat in a country where, everybody has more than they need and there's no motivation to actually change the status quo?
well, let me actually be positive for just 1 second. Canada's doing much better than certain neighbors that I don't want to name their names.
We won't name them. No names would
I'm
be
going to name them. It rhymes with it rhymes with America.
So we're doing way better than like our government at least now has or like is starting to get their stuff together, and hopefully we're going to be on the right track for once in so many years. So yeah, we're doing so much better, but
I like that. I'm going to walk back into the light, Sameh, because I go dark on these things really quick.
I'll give you an example of a country that was going in a completely wrong direction, and now it's like a hotspot for investors and for like an example at the UN for so many things. Egypt. Egypt was going in the very very wrong direction, and from 2011 to 2013 14. There were like a lot of terrorist attacks. There was no government. The economy was collapsing. Infrastructure was decaying. Everything was just falling apart. Look at Egypt now. You probably just saw the opening of the new museum they had.
there last
That
week.
is unbelievable. And can we say though that don't you think there's been a resurgence in Egypt as a country because of the Arab Spring, which was largely see, look at his face. I like saying these things. Um, and then also, but that was a youth-led movement mostly, right? Like it was the TikTok.
It started as a youth-led movement, but it was stolen away by a terrorist political party at the time, which was the Muslim Brotherhood, that just took over. They're just a political group an extremist political group that had, ulterior motives.
See, this is why we can't have nice things, Sammy, because we start off and then they get wrecked, right? Somebody's always taking over and wrecking things.
Exactly. And then these young people, after like a week or two of the revolution, they were kicked out of Tahrir Square, and they were not allowed back in. Muslim Brotherhood took over. And in assistance of some foreign countries, in assistance of some other political parties, they took over and they kicked the young people out. So no, Arab Spring.
But then they overcame all of that. So fast forward to now, what you're saying is that there have been a lot of reforms, right, in Egypt?
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay, so
Things have changed.
there is a light at the end of this very dark tunnel. Um, in these conversations that we have with people, I ask them two questions, and the first question is sometimes contingent on the second question, and sometimes it's independent. But first of all, what is the project that you're working on that you never get to talk about, or that you feel deserves more attention, or that you think needs to be brought to the fore a little bit more? And my second question is, what is your best case scenario outcome for the work that you're doing in these countries?
So it's not a project I'm working on just yet, but it's something that I would, love to work on in the near future. I want to see nutrition treated like a medical prescription. Uh, mm, Doctors issue digital prescriptions for fresh food to at-risk patients, markets accepting them, and get reimbursed directly from like um, a insurance, like a food insurance agency. Um, Producers earn stable income and people eat better without stigma. So that way we're linking health, agriculture, and social protection all, just one circle. Uh, it's bold, I know, but it's kind of doable.
Is that your best case scenario, or is that tell us your best case scenario? What's your best case scenario in working in these sub-Saharan countries?
Well, best case scenario is seeing no homeless, hungry people, or homeless and hungry people. Um, yeah, that's my best case scenario.
And how are you doing? How's it all going?
Everything's very good.
You just have 670 million people to help, and
Yeah,
then
it's
you're
fine.
good.
You're okay.
That's it. Only 670 million. You're right there.
Exactly.
So Dr. Sameh, it was so good to have you
Thank you
and
for
have
your
this
time.
conversation.
It was a great conversation.
You are a rock star.
Yeah.
You are a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
And I'm really hoping that you continue the work, especially empowering children and youth and getting the voice that they so need and deserve. And as you mentioned, to have it proportionate to the population. So we'll look forward to seeing what's
All
in
the good
there for
things.
future. Yeah.
Yep.
And your next master's, did I say that correctly, that you're working on?
Yes.
I'm looking forward to the thesis that comes out.
Yeah, good luck on that.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your time. And till then,
Take care. Thank you
take care.
so much.
Such a motivating conversation.
Love that guy.
Yeah, like it's not only just the gloom and doom. There's lots about
I
it.
get mired down in the gloom and doom because it violates my sense of justice, what's happening, and I get really upset about it.
And rightfully so.
Yeah,
You should
yeah,
get upset about it because
yeah.
if people are not upset, they will never fix it.
Well, and I think it's much easier for people who are in this space all the time to kind of rise and rise again. It's much harder for the average person who hears all of these things to stay positive about stuff when it feels really oppressive.
Absolutely. And one thing that really I took away, I took quite a few things away,
Yeah.
but one thing that I really took away is we as civil society, we as regular people living in this country, especially in Canada, of course, in other countries as well, but especially in Canada, we have to encourage a conversation between provincial, territorial, and federal government on education
Yep.
for kids and youth and see how we can get things in there.
And that seems like a huge job that you're perfectly suited for. So you just go and start knocking on doors and getting people to do it.
Sure.
But here's what I think would be good for us on this podcast is we were talking about Andrew Bazari and the work that he's doing in Toronto. That's a lot of the same as the work that Sameh is doing. I think we should do it inside of our own podcast. Because
I love the idea.
we've been talking to people all the way along and we've heard the same sort of refrain. Farming is a sub-thesis of conversation, right? So there are a lot of people all over the world in youth and farming. Like maybe we need to connect those people. Do they all know each other?
Now my mind is working.
Hello.
You're talking. You're giving me ideas.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like this is a summit. We could do a Zero Hunger Project summit.
Absolutely.
And have breakout sessions on different topics that seem to be repeating over and over again.
I love the idea.
We could have a whole section on political will. All we've talked about is political.
then there'll be every 52 guests.
I know, but like, fine, good.
Which is great.
I just feel like we were talking about, and we're going to talk about this in future episodes, what the point of this podcast has been and what we're going to do moving forward.
Absolutely.
And maybe the outcome of this, that isn't just having conversations with these brilliant people, but it's now what? And this seems like a now what? This seems
and I think
like
I
an answer
spoke
to
in
that.
one of the podcasts before, And when I was in the FAO this year
Yeah.
at the World Food Forum,
Yeah.
and the Pope was speaking,
Yeah.
and one thing that kind of stuck to my head constantly when he said, "We are done talking.
Yeah.
The world leaders have talked enough. It's
Yeah.
time for action."
Yeah.
And I think in our podcast, we should think about
Well,
that.
I just
think
think
that's a
that
great idea.
this is a natural lead into doing something about these conversations that we're having. We've talked to a lot of the people who are working in the global north. Like, let's connect those people, right? Let's get the minister in Finland talking to the guy in Nunavut. Like,
Absolutely.
they're at the same,
The Arctic.
latitude, right? And they have the same problems. They're all in the taiga or beyond that.
Yeah.
So they have the same struggles with growing food and like all of that stuff. We should be having these conversations. We should be the conduit to connect these people and these ideas.
I think that's a brilliant idea.
Right?
Absolutely brilliant idea.
Yeah.
I was thinking about what is next for us, and you just talked me into something.
Well, I just think it would be a horribly missed opportunity if we didn't.
I agree.
If we didn't do that. And
I agree.
I wanted to also, this is apropos of absolutely nothing that we've been talking about, but I thought it really interesting. And this is what I love about this podcast is you get these little nuggets of information from people and they say it so casually because they talk about it all the time. But if you don't know, you don't know. Sameh was talking about the Red Crescent.
Yes.
As opposed to the Red Cross.
Yeah.
And he's talking about the Red Crescent because in the non-Christian countries, like if it's a Muslim country, they call it the Red Crescent, instead of the Red Cross.
100%.
Right? Like I have these little epiphanies where I'm listening to people talk. And again, he probably says Red Crescent 100 times a week.
Exactly.
And it doesn't even occur to him. And I'm like, oh my God, it's
a
fascinating.
Good point because I didn't even think about that angle at all.
And again, like part of the reason why I think this works and why this is an interesting conversation for me is that I am very much a detail person and you are very much a big picture person.
100%.
And so that's why I think this works. But also it's why I often get mired down in the complexities of these problems because I get lost in the detail of, oh my God, how are you going to get from point A to point B? And you're more of a meta, like visionary kind of like, don't worry about that stuff.
We will get it.
Yeah. And I'm like, how do you get, but what that also means for me is that I get all of these little subtleties and nuances and just little turns of phrase and things like that, that a lot of people whose brains are wired differently than mine don't get.
Exactly.
And every time we have one of these conversations, I get one of those little snippets and I collect it like a pearl. And in that one, when he mentioned the Red Crescent, I was like, oh my God, that's so fascinating. And
I did not catch that.
It's so, it's culturally, it's, cultural relativity.
Absolutely.
It's all the stuff that I love.
100%.
And it was just a tiny little thing, but I was like, yeah, these are problems that you have to address where you are. You have to meet people really where they are. And I think and part of it is you can't have a Christian organization in a Muslim country.
And also, if you don't really catch that and do something about it or have these conversations, international development fails.
Right.
So that's a great point.
Yeah.
And Dr. Sameh, thanks for saying it the way you did and for you to pointing it out.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
It's one of the 100 reasons why I love doing this podcast. I mean, I really do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We really appreciate that. So if you haven't been following us, the Zero Hunger Project podcast, follow us. We are on every channel, YouTube. You can watch us. And hope to see you in the next week.
Yes, please.
And our next episode of the Zero Hunger Project. Thanks so much for joining.
Take care.